Coming up on today's episode of Inside Man United, the headlines. Really important Ahmad actions versus Liverpool. Before his goal made, Manchester United coaches sit up and take notice. Darren Fletcher has his say on how Ahmad has developed. United could have 5 potential temporary home options if they have to leave Old Trafford, and we review those options. Man United scout £17 million wonder kid in South America as Sir Jim Ratcliffe is one step ahead with a transfer plan. And finally, Man City have advantage to help sink Man United and hijack agreed deal for record-breaking striker. All that coming up. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the show. And a few little bits and pieces for us to go through, and some interesting stuff for us to go through, and none more so than Mr. Amad Diallo. Now, there's a lot of talk of Michael Olise coming in and him being United's number one transfer target, and I don't see the real requirement to be spending a huge amount of money, especially with the FFP pressure that Manchester United are going to be under over the summer. Now, obviously, we've got some sales to make, and maybe the Olise transfer can make a little bit more sense. But with other areas of the pitch that are more pressing, and it's quite clear that United are going to be looking for at least 2 centre half additions, definitely another midfielder and certainly another striker. With players that we have coming back, with Diallo's emergence, potential return of Mason Greenwood, and the different options that we have for wide players at the club, I don't see how Michael Olise is a priority signing for INEOS and Manchester United. And I, for one, like many other fans, do want to see Diallo given an opportunity more next year, particularly with Garnacho doing so well on the right-hand side. You've got Mason Mount and Rashford, who traditionally play on the left and want to play there. So with Garnacho not really going to be dropped given his form and importance and his development at the club, he's going to be starting on the right. If he doesn't take over on the left, if Rashford for some reason is sold. And then Diallo, I think, is a fine deputy to have there to provide some competition and, really ramp up his minutes on the pitch next season. So I really do want to see Diallo being given more time. And to be honest, Olise wouldn't be a player I'd be hugely focused on, given the other areas of the pitch that we need to look into. So it says here on United in Focus, the youngster had a breakthrough moment in the FA Cup, which he did. I mean, he was only coming on for the end of the initial 90 minutes, and then obviously we got that additional time in extra time, and he continued to play very, very well. So Ahmad's unforgettable winning goal, I mean, he's going to go down in the history books for that, regardless of what happens his United career from here on in. He could have the kind of Federico Macheda kind of mini legendary status for the impact he's had late on in a very important game that we needed to win. However, what's really kind of allowed United's team to kind of stand up and take notice and maybe see that he does have a very strong future next year was his ability to work out of possession. And that's really what kind of got the team noticing what he can do on the pitch. It's not so much what he does with the ball, but off it. And again, that's what's really helped Anthony gain more minutes this season, as well as what he does off the ball. And that is a problem that United have had with their attacking players for a long time. But we've seen Garnacho providing lung-busting displays now. You see him all over the pitch. He runs like an absolute dog, and that's what we need out of our wide players. They need to defend and attack as a team, and Diallo seems to be delivering on that. Saying here he did superbly well with his tracking back, winning the ball back several times, and obviously created his winning goal. But it's really what he's doing off the ball with Darren Fletcher, our technical director, having his say on what he has done to really kind of improve his game. He told The Athletic at that key moment, he has to decide whether to become a right back or whether to defend. And he recognised what he had to do. The intensity, attitude, work rate is there, and his off the ball stuff is really important. So that's what they want to see the players do. It's all well and good wanting to, wow people when you've got the ball at your feet, which attacking players obviously want to do. But it's about what you do for the team when you don't have the ball at your feet. And that's been one of the key criticisms of the likes of Sancho and essentially Marcus Rashford as well. Not essentially, especially Marcus Rashford. He goes on to say, against Liverpool, he showed he'd taken on all our feedback. He made more runs. He was more elusive as well as getting across his attacking qualities. And it's in this defensive contribution which will do more to earn Ten Hag's praise. And I think that's absolutely correct. So he did obviously get that unlucky sending off or whipping off his shirt at the end of the game. So he is going to miss the next game against Brentford, which is okay. It's a shame because I'm sure he might have been given a few extra minutes off the back of that performance. And, you know, when a player is playing well, you want to try and ride that wave as much as you can, particularly when they're young and they might be in a rich vein of form and a little bit of confidence. But yeah, it looks like that off the ball work he's been doing is, is paying off, and hopefully he continues to do that. Next up, we're looking at United's 5 potential temporary home options if they have to leave Old Trafford. And yeah, some interesting options here. So we're just going to flick through them. So the Manchester Evening News doing a nice piece on this with the Old Trafford development. If we do have to indeed move to a new stadium, if they do knock down Old Trafford and don't build, beside it, which is also an option, but might be a little bit more expensive. And we don't know how much time it'll take for these refurbs. Will it take a whole year if you're just kind of giving it a bit of lipstick, even though it is going to cost a lot of money? So there's a few options here. So there's the Etihad Stadium. Boo. Of course we're not going to be playing at the Etihad Stadium, and I don't think either set of fans are going to be particularly happy about that option, and they're unlikely to want to give United a helping hand, and we don't want to be giving them any revenue either. So I think the Etihad is probably going to be off the menu, even though it is a consideration. So Tough Sheets Community Stadium, a great name for the sponsorship of Bolton Stadium. And this is an option as well. It's got a capacity of 28,000 and is obviously a traditional football pitch, and you'll play that later on with some of the are available. Wouldn't be a big move away. Good transport links as well for people traditionally used to going to Old Trafford. And it could be an option there, but I can't help but think there'd be some overlap with games there, potentially the state of the pitch and things like that. It's a tough one to do, but you can see how these things go. A lot of other teams can share stadiums. Obviously AC and Inter Milan do that as well, so it is possible to do that. Ewood Park, this would be another interesting one. So Blackburn's home ground, and it has a capacity of 31,000, which obviously an extra 3,000 seats is going to help with the old coffers. So yeah, I mean, Blackburn Rovers, it could be a little bit too far away. I think it's an extra hour away traditionally from the regular commute for locals to Old Trafford. So it could be a little bit more difficult for that. And like playing at the Etihad Stadium, temporarily moving to Merseyside, they're saying here, would be hugely controversial, but pigs will sooner fly before United play matches at Anfield, which is pretty obvious. But Everton could be open to letting the Reds rent out their stadium as well. So yeah, it would give money to Everton as well, which they badly need due to FFP. So, there would be a mutually beneficial arrangement going on there as well for Everton. So again, that is an interesting option too. There's a nice pic of that ground being renovated, getting a little bit of work done on it. Then there's the Emirates Old Trafford, which to be honest, I think would be the most sensible in terms of, there is decent capacity. There's only cricket being played there. United could use it for their games as well, but there would need to be a little bit of development done with the stadium just to make it a little bit more visible, and to potentially add additional terraces or kind of temporary stands in there just to increase the capacity. So the other Old Trafford stands outside the regeneration area. This is the cricket Old Trafford ground. So it says the stadium holds about 22,000 people. So United might have to fund new stands to bump up the attendance to their needs. But it's an interesting way. I mean, the oval pitch, it would look like an Aussie rules pitch, and you can see the kind of it's quite a narrow line going the full way around, and it's not what you'd be used to, but it is a pretty good option, and it would be the only football team playing on that ground. So an interesting option there. So Lancashire may have reservations considering the toll playing football would have on the square, and that's absolutely facts. But they're building a new ground at Farrington, which is set to open in 2025, and maybe they'd be open to allowing United to take on the ground so long as there was reassurances made that the pitch would be returned to its previous state once done. So some interesting options there. I mean, what do you guys think? Thoughts in the comments. If United did have to kind of go somewhere else for a temporary amount of time, what would make most sense? There's a lot of different considerations there: match day revenue, fan experience, ease of access, whether or not you're helping out a competitor with some of the revenue that you'd be generating there as well. So some interesting options there. Personally, I'd go for the cricket ground, but yeah, maybe Bolton or Blackburn could be a consideration as well, given the fact that it is a proper footballing ground and used to the rough and tumble of regular football play, unlike a cricket ground. We move on here now to the Express with an article by Sam Smith. So United have been scouting a £17 million wonder kid at Boca Juniors, and is the diamond in the Argentinian youth setup, apparently. And United have sent scouts to look at one Aaron Anselmino, and have already hatched an exciting plan for the teenager. AC Milan apparently are interested in the player as well, and you could see that he might be slotting straight into the first team at AC Milan as well, potentially. He could be good enough just to kick his career off in a first team setup in Italy. Certainly wouldn't be the case at United, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe saying that, well, not him saying, but it being reported that if he was to go to United, they'd immediately loan him back out just to allow him to continue his development, probably somewhere closer to home in Europe. So according to TYC Sports, United are now keeping tabs on Anselmino, who can play as a defensive midfielder as well. And a defensive-minded player. And the Argentinians, to be fair, have a great pedigree of defensive-minded players. They're tough. They're tough footballers, always have been and always will be. It's claimed now that the new sporting hierarchy at Old Trafford, led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, want to allow Anselmino to be able to continue his fine development away from the pressure of the United first team. But he seems quite happy at Boca at the moment, with them obviously chasing down and being in the hunt for their local league title. So it said, should the player be acquired during the summer window, he'd be loaned out to ensure he progresses elsewhere, with a release clause of just 17 million. And apparently that's very, very low for a player of this quality. There's a lot of people in Argentina very excited about this kid. And it just goes in line with what he said before, that I don't want to buy Mbappe, I want to buy the next Mbappe. And I think United have been burned before not going for players when they were far cheaper, maybe 2 seasons before they've kind of emerged and become £100 million players. We know Moises Caicedo was missed out on, obviously Erling Haaland as well. And United just have this knack of missing out on these good young players to other clubs and then regretting it later on. I think they want to quit doing that. And again, it's just going to be able to generate a little bit more revenue on players that don't quite make it. You're still going to be able to make a profit, or certainly not make a huge loss on those larger transfers if and when they don't work out. And in terms of United, for most of them, they just don't work out. So it's a pretty solid approach, I think, and I think a lot of fans would be happy to see a little bit more sense being applied to the type of transfers that we go after. So yeah, it goes on to say here how we missed out on Moises Caicedo for as little as 4 million back in the day. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think there's going to be a huge push from United this summer to go after more and more young players. And every week there's a new story with a new young player being linked to United. Although they can't all go to United, I have no doubt that I'd say 80 to 90% of the players mentioned are definitely on United's radar and seriously being given consideration. And on that note, there is talk about a young Italian player who broke records in Serie A recently, Francesco Camarda, and with both Manchester clubs interested in the player, but I think a lot of clubs are interested in this kid. He wrote his name into the history books back in November at just the age of 15 and 260 days. The centre forward became the youngest player ever to appear in a Serie A match. So he's widely recognised as one of the hottest prospects in Italian football, and he plays for the country's under-17s and scored a couple of goals in their recent 5-3 win over Belgium as well. His 16th birthday came and went on March 10th, and a lot of people were expecting him to be offered a professional contract once he did turn 16. It hasn't happened, with a few people scratching their heads thinking this is a little bit risky of the club to do that. So it's interesting that I think a lot of sharks are now circling, seeing if they can maybe steal a march and get this kid onto their books. He's got a cluster of European giants ready to swoop, and Gazzetta dello Sport highlighting that both Manchester clubs are very, very interested in him. So there is a suggestion that there's agreement in principle between Milan and Camarda, that it's already in place. However, it's then claimed Milan are playing a dangerous game by waiting until the end of the season to finalise the deal, which I would agree with, but that's the way these things go sometimes. Explaining why it's stated waiting until next season would allow Milan to tie Camarda down until 2027 rather than 2026. So they might be able to, tag on an extra year there and ensure they don't get their pants pulled down if the player does decide to run down his contract after 1 year. But delaying the youngster's deal is opening the door to the transfer vultures to strike. Gazzetta dello Sport state Man City do hold a key advantage, predominantly because under the City footballing ownership, group. They do have an Italian team, which United do not. So if they did decide to buy him, they can loan him back to Serie A and he can continue his development in Italy, which, would be far less disruptive to a young man like that. He is still 16, despite how good these guys are. They're still kids when they're that kind of age. They claim the fact Italian side Palermo are owned by the City Group, so this would give them an opportunity to allow him to play with their sister club. And he's not allowed to move to England until he's 18 anyway, so it does give them a little bit of an advantage in being able to offer him that option. And obviously joining a club like City, I hate to say it, is a little bit more attractive than Manchester United at the moment, given the clear domination that they have across nearly every competition that they're playing in. So yeah, whatever the outcome is, Gazzetta dello Sport conclude Camarda is expected to make a potentially life-changing decision before the summer, and we're probably going to have to wait a few months until we learn any more about that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, are all the most important headlines, at least in my opinion, for today. And that is it for today's news. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't done so already and you do like the content, please hit that like button and hit subscribe and hit that notification button as well. What do we make of that news? I mean, for me, the most important piece of news there is the reaction of the coaching staff to Amad Diallo's development and the work he's been doing off the ball, and showing the coaches that he is indeed coachable and listening to their instructions and trying to do that off the ball work that obviously helped him shine so much in that Liverpool game. So for me, the Michael Olise links are, it's always exciting to be linked to a new player, particularly with Olise doing as well as he has done, but he is injury prone. He is going to be very expensive. And for me, I think with Garnacho and Diallo there, and then with Mason Mount and maybe Rashford again next season, I don't think we're lacking in options for those wide areas. And I think it's more the spine areas, a striker, midfielder, and certainly one, if not two, and maybe even three centre halves, given that the only centre half that's under the age of 30, I believe, is Lisandro Martinez, and a bunch of those centre halves I can see being on their way out. So I think we're going to be recruiting at least two, if not three, centre backs during the summer. So yeah, Diallo to me is certainly someone who I think can plug a void that we need and save that money for those more important positions. So yeah, thoughts in the comment section, guys. Thank you once again for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow morning, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.